Before we move on to REST API features, which is a whole new block or a whole new way of interacting with the client, and of which we got a taste with our asynchronous JavaScript. Before we do that, let's finish our online shop by adding some payment functionality, because what would be a shop without being able to pay? Now, for that, in this module, we'll add a simple checkout page. We'll collect some payment data, so credit card data, from our user, and we'll finally do the purchase, charge that credit card, or at least simulate the charge in this module, and, well, of course, then still store the order as we did it before. Now, for that, I'll use a third-party provider, Stripe, which is a great provider for integrating payment into your application, and I will show you how to integrate it step by step. Let's first of all start with the payment process. How does this work? Well, it's a pretty long process. We start by collecting the payment method, so the credit card data typically. We then have to verify that. Is the credit card data correct? Is it expired? Is the number correct? We then have to charge it. And after we charge it, we have to manage payments. So that includes things like fraud protection, also managing disputes, and so on. And last but not least, we of course have to process the order in our app, so in our server-side code, for example, that we stored in a database there. Now, all the payment-related things here are pretty complex tasks, both from a legal and a technical side. And therefore, typically you outsource them. And by the way, even very big companies outsource this. Stripe is a very popular company offering payment services. It offers a great integration, and it's super easy to add to any application, as you will see in this module. How does it work? Well, we have our client and our server, so that is all the code we own and we wrote. And then the client will collect credit card data. We'll do that with the help of Stripe, and we'll send it to the Stripe servers, which are not owned by us, but by that company, to validate that input. Once it is valid, Stripe will return a token to us, which basically encodes or which includes that credit card data and the confirmation that it is correct. We send that token to our server, so to our code, and in our code, we create a charge, or we charge this payment method then with the help of Stripe again. So we create a payment object, a charge object, we send that to Stripe with that token and with our price included, and Stripe will then do the actual charging, do the actual managing, and we will get a response once this is done, and then we can also continue with our code and edit this or store this in a database and so on. So this is generally how that will work. Now let me walk you through that step by step. To add payment to our application, let's work on that checkout EJS file with which we never worked thus far. I want to go there before I actually place an order when I click on Order Now in my cart. So I'll go to this page first. For that, I'll copy the content of cart EJS, add it in checkout EJS to make sure that I have my default head. I'll get rid of that style sheet here though, I don't need it here. I want to include the navigation. The main content will be totally different though. I will keep my body, however. So, or my end here. So with that, I have everything set up to have a basic checkout page. Now let's first of all make sure we reach that before we start adding Stripe. For that, we need a new route, of course, in the shop.js file. Here we have our create order route. And in the end, what I need is a new route, a get route, which we can name checkout. And there, I want to be authenticated because that we can only buy something if we are logged in, let's say. And then I'll use my shop controller and there get checkout, which is an action I still have to create. And in that get checkout page then, we'll have the possibility to create an order and so on. So for now, let's just add this. And let's work on our controller then, on our shop controller. And there I need a get checkout method. So maybe here before post order, because logically it comes prior to that, I'll have get checkout with request, response, and next. And in there, I want to render my checkout page. So we can, of course, grab one of our other render functions here. render that. Here I will render shop/checkout. The path can be checkout, but doesn't really matter. We don't have a navigation item we want to highlight. Here we can have checkout as a text. And of course, we need some data for the checkout. Now, what do I want to return here? Well, in the end, I will need the same data as I have in my cart. So I need my products here, which I do have in the cart. So I can actually copy that entire code from getCart, I guess, and add this here. And now just make sure we use shop checkout, path checkout, and here checkout. But besides that, I also need to calculate the total, let's say. So total sum, or whatever you want to name it. And that total sum, of course, can be retrieved from our product data. Because in the cart, or in the products here we have in the cart, you have to keep in mind that products is an array of products where we have the quantity and then a product ID field with detailed data about the products, because we populate this product ID field with the detailed product data. So therefore, the total sum can be generated by looping through all products. So here I can do products for each and create a new variable, total, which is 0 initially. And then there, total is equal plus equal, this shortcut to add something to the existing total. So total plus the product, and then there is a quantity field times the product ID, price. And then it's this total which I pass to my view. So that's all the data I should need in my checkout view. So now back in my checkout.js file. Now I can indeed grab that unordered list for rendering a list of items. Like this. I'll go through all my products. I'll remove the delete button though. It's too late at this point, let's say. We can, of course, always cancel the checkout process if we want to though. Actually, I'll delete this entire form therefore. This is my unordered list. And below that, we can add a div with a h2 tag of total. And then here I output total sum. Now, let's have a look at that. And to have a look, I need to make sure that on cart.js, when we click order now, I don't submit this form here. So we'll actually comment this out. We don't need that anymore. But instead, I want to have a normal anchor tag here where I say order now, where I simply point at /checkout. So this new route we added. And I'll just give this a class of button to look a bit like a button. With all that added, let's go back to our page. Let's go to products here maybe. Add this to the cart. And click order now. And this is now my, the page here. Now it's not looking super beautiful, I'd say. I need to include that cart CSS file again, because since I'm reusing the rest of the code here, and we could create our own style sheet, but I want to keep this relatively short. Since I'm using all that, I of course also want to use the same styles. So now if I reload this checkout page here, this is looking okay. The total could be placed in the middle maybe. We can do that by giving this div a class of centered, which is a utility class I added earlier in the course. And now we have this checkout page. Again, you can always work on the visuals, but it's not so much about the visuals here. So now we have this total, and now I want to add Stripe. And for that, let's first of all set up an account with them. You can simply Google for Stripe and you should find their page. And they have a really great documentation, by the way, in case you want to use it. So definitely dive into developers' documentation. But we can simply click create account here and then create an account real quick. Now, once you got your account created, you can already get started. First of all, you need to validate your account. So make sure you click on that verify email link you get in an extra email. And once you did that, you're ready to get started. Now, important, under developers, you'll find a bunch of API keys which you will need to add Stripe. And we are seeing special testing data here, which is fine for our development. If you want to build a real application and you want to push it to production, you would switch to your live data here. For this, you have to activate your account though. We'll not do that here. We'll work with the test data to get started. So now with all that, we can actually click on Home and click on Accept First Payment here to dive into the official docs and learn how we can accept our payment. And the cool thing is, this data here is actually already populated with our data, with our publishable key, for example. So that is that key you saw under Developers API keys. That are keys you need to send with your data to let Stripe know to which account this belongs. So here, this is a data snippet, a code snippet we can already use, and we can add that to our checkout EJS file. So there, let's add a new div. Let's add this form. Here, we now need to target a route on our server. So maybe checkout with a post request here. Or, since we already have that, create order, this post request. So now I'll use this method. And in there's only a script which will in the end create the input fields for the user. And this will use a script provided by the Stripe company, which makes using it very convenient. Now, of course, we need to populate this with the amount, and we can use EJS here to input our total sum into the script here. Yes, this works. You can input data into a script with EJS. You can enter a name here, any name you want. I'll add your order, all the items you ordered. You can set the currency. I'll set it to USD, and you can leave the other defaults for now. Now with that, if you now reload your checkout page, you'll have that Pay with Card button there, which was created by the Stripe script. Now, by the way, I'll also give this div a class of centered to center that button. So now with that added, if I reload, the button is here. If you click that, it will open this modal here, all controlled by Stripe, where you can now enter your payment data. And now important, now that I see it, that's a common gotcha. The amount you enter is entered in cents. So total sum is now treated as cents. We have to multiply that, of course, with 100 to get the right amount. So if I now reload and I click Pay by Card, now I see the right amount here. So that's important. You enter the amount in cent. So now we have that order field. And how can we now continue? Well, if the user now enters his data here, and you can use this dummy card number of 42424242424242, so 4 times 4242, any date in the future here, and any code. If you do this, you can click Pay, and what this will do is it will now generate that token through Stripe's servers, and automatically send a request to your backend, which now fails. Send a request to your backend, and then there, it'll try to handle that. As you see, it sent a request to create order. So we'll have to work on that, but create order is the right route. So now this would send a request to the backend, to the create order route. And now there we have to continue, because now there we will receive some special data. And how to continue is also something Stripe tells you. If you scroll down on the quick start page here to step 2, you see a code snippet, and you can switch to Node here to see how to handle the data on the incoming request. And you see that the incoming request will have a Stripe token in its body. We can copy that code as well, and then move to our controller, and there to shop.js, of course. And now we're interested in post order. Now, here, in the end, I now have my Stripe object, which requires the Stripe package, which I need to install. We need to install that. And which then uses this token, which is again the token from our API key section in our dashboard. Now let me quit my server and quickly install Stripe with npm install --save Stripe. We need that package here because we're importing it here and we're using something from that package. We can, of course, also move that up to the other imports here, like that. Make sure to execute it as a function, though, and pass your key. That is not your publishable key, but your secret key, by the way. And by the time you're watching this, I've already switched my keys, so no need in trying out mine. Then we're extracting the token from the incoming request, and then we're creating such a charge object here. Here again, you need to enter your amount in sends though, and this should now be done not with data sent with the request, because that could be faked by the user, but of course you should fetch that data from your server again. So here where I'm fetching my user, and I'm then getting all the info from my cart, I'm creating the order and I'm saving my order in there. I will also create my charge object with the Stripe package, and the amount is now something I can calculate in there too. Because there I can have my total sum, which is 0. And then again, I loop through all my user card items here with for each. That will be my products. And I'll have the same logic as before. Total sum will be the old total sum plus product quantity times product ID price. So I'll calculate the total sum like this. And I'll then add my total sum times 100 because it's in cent here. And then here we could use something like timestamp, description of the order, username, whatever you want. I'll just name it demo order. The source is the token, which we extract up here. So that token which includes the validated credit card data. And now with that, this here will already send a request to the Stripe servers and charge our payment method there. So make that charge. You can also take that charge and do it here once you have the result where you will know the ID of your order. Because then you can actually add some metadata here, which is a JavaScript object, where you can pass any arbitrary data you want to match this order with the charge that will be stored in your Stripe account. So here we could have order ID, and there I could have result underscore ID. That should be the ID of the created order. So now I'm making my charge down there. Important to have the total sum available, I need to create that variable outside of that then block function. Otherwise, it would only be available in there, but I need it outside of there too because I need it in the next then block. And now I'm creating my charge after I stored my order. Now, with that in place, let's go back to our application and pay with card. Enter the dummy card data, some date in the future, and any CVC code you want. Now we still get this error. Now this error has a relatively simple explanation. In shop.js, I'm trying to retrieve my Stripe token from a request body. It should be rec body because I named this argument rec. So that is something I did wrong by just copying this in. And now if you go back and we try to send this again, I get another error, but this time it is related to our CSRF token. And by the way, a great way to see the original error message is to add a console log and logging the error in the error handling function here, because then you will see that I got an invalid CSRF token. And that makes sense because for the request sent by the Stripe modal, so by that modal we entered our credit card data in, this request does not include our CSRF token. So this checkout form does not include it. Now you could include your hidden input field there, but that wouldn't do anything because Stripe creates its own form in the end in an iframe which it loads. But that also means that Stripe takes care about securing that form. So this is not this form which you embed into your document there. Stripe renders and loads and secures its own form. So you don't need to pass the CSRF token. That just means we have to disable CSRF token protection for this post create order route. And to do that, I'll cut the route from my shop.js routes file, and I'll move it directly into app.js. There, I'll add the route above my other routes, here, and I'll replace router with app, because we only have the app available in this file. There, we also have a post method to only trigger this middleware upon post requests. I filter for /createOrder, and I still want to use isOff and the shop controller. So I'll need to import both in my app.js file as well. So let's go to the shop routes file, copy these two imports, shop controller and isOff, go back to app.js, and in there at the top, maybe below my error controller. I'll import these two files. The import path needs to be adjusted because now I don't have to go up one level. I already am in the folder I need to import this in, or I'm in the parent folder of these folders to be precise. And with that added, if I go down now, here I have this route. Now, this route still has CSRF protection added to it though, because I have my CSRF middleware here. The idea now is that I initialize this middleware after this route, which should not be checked, so that only the routes after this will be affected. Because remember, the request travels through the middleware from top to bottom. So CSRF protection only gets added after this route. So if you have exceptions, of which you typically don't have too many, but if you have exceptions like this one, place it before you enable this middleware. Now, one important thing, I have another middleware where I set this CSRF token here. I need to copy that middleware, remove the CSRF token assignment up there, and add that middleware after I enable CSRF protection, remove the isLoggedIn extraction here, and then set CSRF token here. And with that, this route should now be excluded. And now finally, if I go back and I pay with card, I can enter my card number here. And submit this request. And now I do end up on orders. I see my order here. My card is empty. And if I go to my Stripe dashboard and I click on payments there, I don't see anything. Now if I go back, I also see an error here in my log for the node. And there we see that object ID basically was the problem. I tried to send some extra data in my shop controller to Stripe here. The result ID, I should convert this to a string. Otherwise, this can't be added and therefore my charge failed. Now, this is a bug we need to fix. So after fixing this, let me go back to my application and create another order by adding this to a cart, ordering it now, and now paying. Now this looks better. Now I got no error here on Node. And now if I have a look at my payments dashboard and I reload this page, I see my payment for $22 with my demo order and my extra metadata here, the order ID. So that's the ID of the order as it is stored in my database. And this is how you can add payment. Of course, Stripe is very powerful, can do a lot of things. You can also improve this by catching errors that might be occur due to charging, as we hit it before, though this bug is fixed. And then you might want to roll back orders you placed in your database. You can do way more with Stripe. Check out their official docs. But I hope that this is helpful for showing you how you can integrate payment with Stripe easily into your application.